Good morning. Today is the feast of St. Catherine of Siena. I send great greetings to the university students of Bristol because one of their co-patrons of the chaplaincy there is St. Catherine of Siena. So if you're still there, happy feast day. And also to Father Rupert, who is the chaplain to the universities. I wish you a happy feast day. One of the extraordinary things about St. Catherine, so many incredible things about her life. A woman of great learning, great understanding. Why I'm sitting in the library today, proclaimed a Doctor of the Church by Paul VI. She is the one who persuaded one of the popes to go back from Avignon back to Rome. A woman who reformed the Dominican order. But I want to think about her right at the beginning, as a little girl. From a very early age, she was one of 25 kids. From a very early age, she had a great devotion to God. Great devotion. Known for it. Had little chapels, altars in her house, in her room. Had a great love of silence, a great love of prayer. She got to the age of 12, and her mum and dad, as was the custom at the time, decided to give her over to marriage. Catherine didn't want to be married. She wanted to give her life to God. So what were her family to do? Well, they did what I suspect lots of families would do, which is that they tried to persuade her that what she wanted to do was to do what everyone else was doing, which was to get married, to live a life, a lovely life, a successful life, the life of a wife, of a mother, but not the life that God wanted her to live. Catherine, in many, many different ways, tried to keep up her life of prayer, even though her parents took it away from her. Tried to keep up her life of devotion, even though they took away all of the things that she needed. They weren't wicked people at all, but their view, their idea of what was best for her was very different from her and very different from God. Her sisters tried to persuade her that the world lived in handsome young men and dresses. Well, St. Catherine went along for it for a while, but realised that it wasn't her. It wasn't what God wanted for her. And then, after 6 years of this, a young girl from the age of 12 to 18, eventually they gave in and said, well, if she hasn't done it now, she's not going to. And they allowed her to become a tertiary of the Dominicans. After that, all of the other things happened. That's for another time. But this first time, this first moment, is something I want to think about today. Because Catherine knew what God wanted her to do as a young girl. And people, for good motives, tried to get in the way of it. I have the great fortune, the great privilege of knowing that I wanted to be a priest from very, very early on. And the other great privilege of my mum and dad thinking, oh, he's just weird, he can do what he wants. So they left me to my own devices. So from the age of 12, 13, when St. Catherine was being potentially sold off into marriage, my mum, my dad said, well, do what you need to do, and we'll see what happens at the end. A great wisdom in that. Most of us priests have come across, for the same good reasons as St. Catherine's parents, we've come across parishioners who've said, oh, little Johnny, some child, little Johnny has said that, oh, he wanted to be a priest. 12, 13, 14, 6, 7, 8. But I told them, no, what you need to go off, you need to have a family. That's what you need. And you need to go off and get a good career. That'll make you happy. So, Father, it's fine because I dissuaded him. It's all right. It's much, much better. Apart from the fact of what that says to us, of what we've given our life to, is worth not enough for your son. What does it say about God's putting a vocation into his heart. The same as St. Catherine. It is, if God calls you to something, there is nothing else which will satisfy you. Nothing at all. You can get by with stuff, but you are a frustrated priest. Your vocation is frustrated. It happens too often. I've heard it too often. Think about it for yourself. What happens if you're a mother, and your son, perhaps now your only son, comes along and says, well, I think I might have a vocation from the age of 8, 9, 10, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22. What do you say to him? Do you say, oh my goodness, how wonderful, go, find out what it is that God does? Or do you say, no, you don't want that, no, what you need to do is go out, find out about the world, go and get yourself a woman, get yourself a girl, see what the world has to offer for you, and then make the decision. If you think that's a good answer, then think about this. What happens if he turned up and said, I found the woman I want to marry at the age of 16, 17, and you say to him, no, you can't make that decision then. Here's £1,000. Go off to Amsterdam and find every girl who is selling herself on every street corner and try them. And then come back and then make the decision. It's monstrous. And yet for vocation we do the same thing. A particular thing I think for women, and mothers, which is, what about my poor little boy? What about my son? For fathers perhaps it's, what about my name? What happens if your only son, is the one who goes off and decides he wants to be a priest? He's not going to have kids. There are going to be no little ones running around. What do? Do you support him or do you not? What happens if you're the one who has a friend, brothers, but a friend perhaps, who wants to become a priest? Do you mock him? Do you not? Do you support him? Do you say, oh my goodness, look at them, look at that lot? You don't want to join them, do you? Look at them. They're all so weird. You're just going off, you're joining a bunch of, let's say the word, bunch of deviants, of paedophiles. This is not the vocation which God gives me, which God has given priests through the ages, which God may be giving to your son. Saint Catherine knew at the age of 12 that she had to become a nun. And through all of those years, 6 years, she stuck with it, and she became it at the end. And a holy saint of God, and somebody who influenced the Pope himself. But for you, when your son, when your brother, when your friend comes to you, you may not have the strength to be able to keep it up for 6 years. Have you destroyed his vocation? What an interesting and horrible question. What happens if somebody came along and said to you, oh, that man who you're going to marry in the future? No, you don't want to marry him. Marry somebody else, somebody acceptable. You want to go off and give your life to being a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, working in Sainsbury's. No, I have a different plan for you. Unless that comes from God, how dare they, to you, to your vocation, your life, give that to your sons, their vocation, their life. God is calling them to something extraordinary. I beg you to not stand in their way. May St. Catherine give all people a great devotion to the vocation of life. And may God bless you.